several clergy in Russia.
So was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Kaliningrad.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that? Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the latest edition of Views on the News. Yes, I will get the intro revised one day. I'm just so busy. We have some usual guests here, the regulars. We have co-host Tercia Duplessis from South Africa. And we have, yes, great. And we have Dread Pirate Higgs from very northern part of British Columbia today. Yeah. Are you actually in the tundra or close to it?
Well, yes, there's permafrost in certain areas around here.
Yeah. And you've got snow too, I believe.
Yeah, it's a winter wonderland out there right now.
Great. Okay. Well, I'm glad you like it.
No, I don't.
Oh,
I only do it for the money.
yeah. Okay, so here's the first item of news for you to respond to. Back in 2018, in Italy, Maria Silvia Fiengo and Francesca Pardi were among the country's first same-sex couples to be registered as parents. The forward-thinking mayor of Milan, Giuseppe Sala, took a progressive stance and allowed children born to parents of the same gender to be acknowledged in the absence of any clear national Italian legislation. So being finally recognized as a household was wonderful for Maria and Francesca, because they'd had years of legal challenges. So they felt the whole thing was truly incredible. This week, however, what had been seen as a major victory for equality and acceptance by the LGBT community was reversed. Italy's right-wing government instructed Milan's city council to stop registering the children of same-sex parents. What about that?
So the first thing, I have a question. Can you register a child if you're a single parent? If you're unmarried? And
That's a good question.
can that happen? Or are those? So if you get pregnant and you're not married, are those children not registered? I'd like to know.
So would I. I really can't provide any information on that, I'm afraid. But it may have been, looking at the UK situation, you've always been able to, well, I say always, but for a long time, you've been able to register children as having one sort of proper parent and another as the supposed father. But it took a long while for two same-gender parents to be recognized as parents.
Right.
Dread, what's your comment? I want to hear what you have to say before I ask my next question.
Well, I mean, it's devastating, of course. Is this like a change in government? Is that why this is happening, or is it somehow that they've just been suddenly alerted to this practice and have suddenly decided that it's unholy?
I think Italy has recently changed government.
That's unfortunate.
The new government is very conservative.
So on the topic of the new Italian government, I think that this is probably the first in a series of more conservative legislation that we can expect, because the new is it the prime minister? I've forgotten her name. It's a woman, and the party that she's the leader of is actually a direct descendant of the party that Mussolini started. And this woman has taken her entire playbook directly from
Her
Mussolini.
name, I can help you with that. Her name is Giorgia Meloni.
That's right. So if we look back at what happened in Italy and in Nazi Germany, then this is not a good. It's a portent of things that might.
Yeah.
It would
Go
be
wrong.
interesting to know what her platform was. I mean, because certainly it would be a logical fallacy to make the claim that by virtue of um, her genetic legacy that she's inclined to behave in the same way. So that's why I'm
Oh no,
wondering.
it's not.
I'm curious what her.
Maybe I misspoke. It's not. She's not genetically a descendant of Mussolini.
No.
Her political her
Affiliation.
political views
Mm.
stem directly from Mussolini. So
Wow.
so
Well, that's
she yeah. And
that's
and
that's the
her
worst
party,
thing is that
that is
the populace would allow themselves to forget the past
exactly.
to the
Yeah.
So
point
it
of
is worse
repeating.
because you can't choose your genetic ancestry, but you
No,
can
no,
choose.
I understand it. What I meant was it was it would have been a genetic fallacy,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I can tell you that she's got a very conservative agenda. And there is a centre-left Democratic Party, the opposition. Well, one of the oppositions, because as you know, they have a proportional representation in Italy, and it's a multi-party parliament.
kind of like Canada.
Yeah, and very often the government is a what do they
It's
call
a
it?
minority government
Yeah,
or coalition. Coalition.
Yeah, it's a coalition between two not very compatible parties. Anyway, the newly elected leader of the centre-left Democratic Party, Ellie Schlein, another woman leader, she said her message to the Prime Minister was not to discriminate against the daughters and sons of these wonderful families. We're talking about the boys and girls who are already growing up in our communities and going to our schools. And it's no longer tolerable. And these families are tired of being discriminated against.
Well, yeah.
And
I mean, what else is there to say?
furthermore, there's ample evidence that it is better for a child to be raised in a healthy same-sex or same-gender family, or even in a single-parent family. It's much healthier for the child's development than to be raised in a traditional family that has dysfunctional individuals and where there's abuse and that type of thing. So the scientific evidence is very clear that there's absolutely no harm done to children who grow up as part of same-sex union families.
Yeah, and it could be said too that what does sex really have to do with it? Because you could be of the same sex and indulge in some pretty deviant behaviors in the background, unbeknownst to your children, and you're still granted the right to raise them. It absolutely makes no sense.
Yeah, well, in a lot of countries, children are raised in a wider family, in a village, rather than by a two-parent
Yep, true enough.
nuclear style family. Yeah. So I think we're of agreement that this is a step backward for Italy.
Yeah. No pasta for them.
Yeah, you need to extend your influence a bit, Trent. So moving over to India, another country that begins with I. The police in the Punjab are searching for a Sikh separatist leader. Now, the Sikh religion doesn't often feature in our news. They seem to be one of the less extreme religions. But listen to this. This leader has been on the run for a week, and he calls for a separate homeland for the Sikhs. His name is Amrit Pal Singh, and he's revived memories of a 1980s insurgency in which thousands died. What happened back then is a preacher called Jarnail Singh Bindrawali led an armed insurgency for a separate Sikh homeland that they were calling Khalistan. Kali is one of their gods. And he, Bindranwale, was killed in an Indian army's storming of the Golden Temple, the holiest shrine in the Sikh religion, back in 1984. So this guy, this new one, has struck chords with people who liked that older one, who wanted a separate Sikh homeland, Khalistan. And on Sunday, even in London, people protested outside the Indian High Commission carrying banners with Khalistan written on them. And videos showed a man detaching the Indian flag from the balcony of the building in London. What do you think about that?
Can I play devil's advocate?
Okay.
So, would it really matter if they were given a little piece of land and said, "All right, it's fine, you go and live your Khalistan"? Would I mean, it would surely solve much violence and.
If only.
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
As I'm saying, I'm trying to think out of the box here of a possible solution.
If only things were that simple. The last time that was attempted was when the British left India, and the Muslims were allocated a separate homeland, or two separate homelands from the Hindus, and about 1 million of them, because they're all mixed up. It's not, the Muslims are here and the Hindus are there. They're all mixed up.
And so wherever they happen to be is where they're going to want to have their piece of the pie, right? Yeah.
So back then, the Muslims migrated into Pakistan and what is now Bangladesh. At the time, they were West and East Pakistan, and about 1 million people died as a result of this attempt to separate on the grounds of faith.
Right.
Disaster.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think if people are ceding to these interests, then everyone's going to want it. I mean, it really is a slippery slope, right?
Yeah.
And what worse way to define yourself than a silly belief?
Yeah.
Do you think a solution would be to tell all the different faiths, say, all right, let's create a space, and each group goes into that space and say, all right, my God is now going to come in here, and then all in succession invite all their gods, and then they close the door and they let the gods sort it out, and they say, give them at the end of 6 weeks.
I think that's an eminently great idea. Yes.
Do you think that's going to work? And everybody just has to wait patiently so that like you have the white smoke and the black smoke when the new pope is elected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That should work. I mean,
yeah.
give them a box and say,
You're
now
onto
let the
something.
gods sort themselves out, and we just continue with our lives. And you can pray to your God
Yeah,
for
yeah,
assistance
yeah, yeah.
as
You're
much
not
as you want.
you're not talking about putting the people together, are you? You're
No,
just
no,
saying,
absolutely
No, just
not.
put the
No,
gods
let
together.
the gods sort it out.
put your
No, no.
gods,
Yeah.
put your gods on
Yes.
this.
You know, in a way, it would be like the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, right? Just like who can influence the decay of a proton to
Yeah,
affect the isotope that kills the cat, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
And I mean,
may
there
the
are
best
shrines.
God win.
It made absolutely, and the people that the adherents to the different religions, they can pray and bring sacrifices as much as they want to their heart's content, but they're not allowed to interfere with the gods sorting out their business. I think that's perhaps a solution.
I like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. For God. Yeah. And of course, a king was allowed to elect a soldier to represent him in a fight, wasn't he? And what did they call that?
Yes, trial by combat. It's actually a
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
trial by combat.
Yeah,
But the
Yes,
person,
it's a
the
champion,
person,
a
yeah,
champion.
a champion. Yeah, yeah.
yes,
So
yes.
there you go. That is the principle has been established.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we just have to get the send this a video clip of this video to Prime Minister Modi.
It could even
Yeah.
be done virtually, couldn't it? We could do it in a game world.
Well, yeah, like what's that? Like Fight Club or something like that, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
I'm
they can
liking
have
it.
filters inside the box where the gods are fighting it out, you know?
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
exciting viewing, don't you think?
Yeah.
I love it. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to bring us down to reality because in Sydney, Australia, there's been a LGBT group clash with a mob outside a church, and the mob consisted of hundreds of far-right thugs who punched people. The event in the church was attended by a right-wing politician, Mark Latham, and he was holding a meeting in this church to discuss religious freedom and parental rights. But if you know his reputation, his idea of religious freedom is very much what he considers to be a suitable sort of freedom. He's very right wing, and so the mob. LGBT activists were outside the church protesting about what was going on inside, and then the mob came along and punched them. And the New South Wales police superintendent, a lady called Sheridan Waldau, said peaceful protesters were set upon by a mob of about 250 people outside the church in Belfield, southwest Sydney. Glass bottles and other projectiles were thrown at officers, and a man was pushed to the ground and assaulted. Riot police were called in to disperse the crowd. 2 men were arrested and charged with encouraging crimes and common assault. She expects further arrests as police view footage of the incident. So Australia and other places doesn't figure very often in our religious news, but here it is.
You go
Yeah.
first, Red. I have
Well-
once again a contrary opinion on, well, depending on the details, but you go first.
Well, yeah, I would say that. Do we know it's religious based, like, or is it just people that are anti-LGBTQ? You know, like, I don't know. It wasn't clear in the story if it's religiously motivated or if it's just like thugs, people that don't like that kind of stuff.
Well, the religion
I mean,
aspect,
I understand that it was taking place in a church, but
yeah.
is that just by virtue of it being a venue, or was it? I mean,
Well,
what's the context of what was going on?
I guess that it was taking place there because the audience were right-wing Christians, and they'd invited this right-wing politician to speak to them on the subject of religious freedom. By that they mean Christian privilege
Right.
and parental rights. And outside, there were all these LGBT people who were protesting about what was going on inside.
Hmm.
So
Well,
what
go ahead.
sorry, Drew. What I wonder about is whether the people protesting outside, so if they were protesting in principle because um, the fundamentalist Christian is often also right wing in places like Australia, South Africa, the United States. There's a strong correlation between Christian fundamentalism and right wing uh, views. So if that's the reason they were protesting, and if they should, in the first place, in my opinion, be protesting about it should be an anti-religion protest, because what bothers me when LGBT people protest against churches, if you are a Christian and you're LGBTQ, then I don't think you have the right to protest the church's views on LGBTQ. Um,
Yeah, if you're part of the club, you don't really have a.
exactly,
I
and,
agree.
and that's something that quite bothers me.
Hmm.
So if these were Christian LGBT people protesting this particular church, then I don't have much sympathy for them, in the sense that it's not right what happened, but we know what right wing extremists politicians are like. You basically, it's like waving a red flag at a bull.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if
we
but
don't
we don't
actually
know that.
no, we don't actually know what the faith of the LGBTQ activists was, or whether they shared a single faith. We don't know that, but what we know is they were peacefully protesting outside the church about what was going on inside the church, when 250 right-wing thugs started throwing bottles at them.
Yeah, well, here's the thought. Did the people inside the church who were being protested against actually call the people who formed the mob to come on down there and clear up the streets? Right?
Who
That would
knows?
be the interesting connection to see.
Yeah. Mm.
And well, I do trust that there will be arrests made and against the people who injured other people, because basically what you have here is a clash of two groups of protesters,
Yeah.
because that's basically what happened here. And yeah, it's nasty, but
Mhm.
I have to confess that I would not protest far right wing. I would not protest such a meeting, because I know what far right wing, what the attitude is
You're
toward
courting
you.
that kind of behavior,
Yeah, so
right?
I would be personally, I would say, this is one protest I'm not going to do in person. Maybe I'll do something virtually, but I'm not going to go there,
Yeah.
because you never know what can
They
happen.
have to come up with guerrilla protesting, right? Like guerrilla warfare.
Absolutely.
You just show up like a flash mob, and you're there
Mm.
for 15 minutes. You do your protest,
Yeah.
and you're out before anyone catches on.
Right, yeah. Mm. And you don't have to wear a gorilla suit. No.
Right? Just colanders.
Okay. Right. Well, now we're coming
Tercy,
to
I have to say, your sound is excellent, because you've often broken up on a cycle, but you've
Yeah.
just been awesome. So good to hear
She
your
has.
true voice.
He's got a wonderful connection. Go there again, wherever you are.
I'm plugged into the right space. I'm plugged into the left side.
Good, yeah. So that was Australia. Now we come to England. Well, England, that part of the UK. So we've had two horrific events in the last week, one in Birmingham and one in London, when men were leaving their mosque, having just been, receiving prayers and a service, whatever goes on in a mosque. And they were, first of all, engaged in conversation by somebody else who had been at the mosque with them, who then sprayed them with something and set fire to it.
Ooh.
So one man who was 82 was set alight in Ealing, and his name was, he was known locally as Mr. Hashi. He received hospital treatment for severe burns to his face and arms. And another one in Birmingham, Mohammed Rayaj, 70 years old, was set on fire and seriously injured. And somebody has been arrested. And it's Mohammed Abubakar, 28, who lives in Birmingham. And apparently his modus operandi has been to engage these men as they both leave a mosque in conversation and then turn and attack them.
What's the motive? Does anybody know? Why is he doing this?
I don't know. We can speculate that he might be some sort of disaffected Muslim, but I can't think of many other
Or he
reasons.
just has a mental illness.
Yeah, that's possible too. Yeah.
I mean, you think about that guy that, I think the Canadian there on the bus there, he just grabbed the person beside him and cut off his head.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
people do some pretty weird things.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard to fathom what the motivation is, right?
The thing about this, though, is it's happened twice, and the process was the same. So
And is it the same person? Was it the same person? Or was it? Yeah.
Well, he's an arsonist, but he's a human arsonist, right? I mean, it's not a building; it's a person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange.
So a spokesperson for the West London Islamic Centre, which is one of the venues where this happened, said, "As we commence the blessed month of Ramadan, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and their families."
Of course they are.
What good is that going to do?
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
we know.
for us, it's coming up on Passover, eh? So that's our second holiest holiday, but we don't burn people.
Pasta over.
Passover, yeah.
Yes. Great. Okay, so
It's second only to Talk Like a Pirate Day.
yes, I'm sure. So staying with the UK, there is, I mean, from the opening, it sounds as though I'm not staying with the UK, but you'll see the relevance. A Danish far-right politician, a guy called Rasmus Paludan, who is the founder of the anti-Islam party Stram Kurs, and has a track record of burning Qurans in Denmark. He's held several protests in which the Islamic text was burned, and some have led to violent counter-demonstrations. He wanted to come here because he heard that last week, or was it the week before, 4 pupils of a Wakefield school were suspended over very minor damage to a copy of the Quran that happened this is in southwest Yorkshire. So he's applied to come to the UK, And the security minister has told the House of Commons that he's not allowed to enter.
Which I think is a good thing, because what does he want to come and do? So my view, and I feel very strongly about this, if you can burn books, then it's not a big step to burning things and other things, and then to burning people. So that's my first view, is that. What does one achieve by burning a book? I mean, absolutely nothing. And then, as far as the scholars damaging copies of the Quran, the same goes. There's no need to damage a book. Don't damage things. I mean, it's children should be taught that you don't damage things, because it's not a way to solve any problems.
I
And
can tell you,
Yeah,
I can
but
tell
but isn't it just? I mean, it's entirely symbolic. I mean, it's like burning a flag.
I can tell you what he was hoping to do. He wanted to become incendiary.
Uh,
yeah,
Yes.
well, but Dred, if you protest, if somebody's doing something wrong, so and you want to set the flag alight because you want to say, with this you're sending a message. In certain contexts, I can see that could have a purpose, but exactly because it's such a symbolic action to destroy something that stands for something else, I don't think it's a good idea to burn books, because if there are better ways to become incendiary, and that is to set people thinking. That's a much better way. So, and in my opinion, but I hear what you said about the flag burning, but exactly, it's because that's a symbol of so a flag stands for a regime, and we're burning this flag because we want to destroy the regime.
Right.
And but we
Isn't
shouldn't.
Islam a regime in
Yes,
many
it
respects?
is. I think it is, but I think there are better ways
Well, sure, but I mean,
to
I mean, it's the shock value, right? It's sometimes just having a um, a cogent and rational conversation about religion with somebody doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any effect, and sometimes it's the belief that doing these shocking things is the moment where people kind of go, how dare you, or whatever. I mean, there certainly can't be a one size fits all with respect to how we protest the things that we don't agree with. And that would include flag burning and book burning, I imagine.
Anyway, our security minister, Mr. Tugendhat, said Mr. Paludan had been added to the UK's warning index. His travel to the United Kingdom would not be conducive with the public good, and he will not be allowed access.
Yes. So Tercia, I just want to expound on this a little further, because I actually went to the Human Rights Tribunal to protest or to file a claim against the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia for refusing to photograph me with my religious headgear based on the statement that I profess that faith. And they denied me on the basis that I was a pastafarian and I mock religions and certain religious practices. And that was it. The book was closed. They said, bugger off. We don't have any interest in dealing with you. And I had to go to Supreme Court. Guess what the Supreme Court did? They upheld that decision by the Human Rights Tribunal. The Human Rights Tribunal. And this is in Canada. So,
Well, I think you did 100% the right thing by doing that. and I would have gone with you if I were there. I think I must try that here. I wonder what they'll do if I proclaim myself to be a Pastafarian in South Africa and I want my colander on my head with my. Well, we're
Well,
not
you
even
wouldn't be
allowed to
alone.
wear.
You wouldn't be alone.
We're not even allowed for our ID and passport photos. We have to take our glasses off. So
Yeah.
they won't even. They won't allow you to wear a hat. And in South Africa, you're not allowed to wear headscarves either. So for all identification photos, but it's a universal rule in
Now,
South Africa.
and that would be fine. You know,
Yes.
if the same rule applied evenly to all people of all faiths, that would be perfectly justifiable, especially if they can make the claim that it interferes with facial recognition technology. But the fact that here in Canada, at least, Sikhs and particularly Sikhs
Yeah,
who wear turbans,
Yep.
they're allowed, as are women with the niqab, the hijab, the burqa. In the case, of course, where it's a burqa, where it's completely covered off, they actually have to go into a separate room and just uncover enough in order to capture for the benefit of the facial recognition technology. But in all other cases, it is superfluous.
You are being discriminated against.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely so.
But the Supreme Court upheld the case. I'd love to hear that story. Do you have
Yeah, well, it's unfolding
away
still.
from-
I am actually now going through the office of the ombudsperson. That office, of course, has only the power to recommend. It doesn't have the power to direct. But nevertheless, it raises the profile of what's really going on. And of course, what I'm arguing, and I'm sorry to take this off track, John, but that those institutions there's nothing in their mandate which gives them the right to make decisions about religiosity, period. It is not something they should be arguing against or for in any case, because if the object of what they're doing is to simply capture the likeness of a person sufficient to the technology of facial recognition, that's it. That's where it ends. If you want to wear a baseball cap or you want tattoos all over your face, if you want to say F you ICBC and have that on your forehead, what are they going to do about it? Right? So that's kind of the point.
Keep plugging away, Fred. Anyway, we can't let America off today. So I want to tell you about a Reverend Johnny Hunt, who was a long-time Georgia megachurch pastor who, his lawyers admit, had a brief, inappropriate extramarital encounter with a married woman in 2010. He claims that the incident was consensual and that it was a private matter, but it had been made public in a major 2022 report by the Southern Baptists organization, who he was by then the president of. So he is now suing them for defamation.
Well, I did a little bit of research on Pastor Hunt, and he's a rags to riches story. So he has enough money. So let him sue them as much as he wants to. I mean, let them just have fun as much as they can.
Yeah, it's this self implosion, right? Like, let them fight amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And
the bit I like best, listen to this. Some of the precise details are disputed, but at most, the encounter lasted only a few minutes, and it involved only kissing and some awkward fondling.
So did God approve? Did God approve of the awkward fondling?
Yeah. Or is he a Minuteman?
Is that God now, or is it the pastor?
Yeah.
Minuteman. Anyway, in Wyoming, they've banned abortion pills.
Yeah.
That's
And
not,
are doctors now in fear of some kind of legal reprisals if they facilitate or prescribe these pills, I suppose? Yeah.
yeah. It's now illegal to prescribe or sell them in Wyoming.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to also put a ban on, coat hangers and other instruments
And
by which
condoms.
women
What about
take
condoms? They
that
should
into
then
their
ban.
own hands.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Or bottles of gin, rumored to be a
literally,
way.
then you have to, if you want to ban the abortion pill, then you have to. If you want to be consequent,
Yeah.
you have to ban condoms. You have to ban contraception because, and you have to ban. So, so, I mean,
Presumably, you'd even have to ban the, what do they call it? The rhythm method. No, no.
exactly, that was where I was going. So they'll have to install video cameras to see that every single sexual event goes all the way, because if you don't, then obviously you're preventing
Yeah,
a pregnancy, which is technically abortion.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go. So to finish up, we're going to Uganda. I don't know if you know about Uganda. It's a landlocked country in Africa which borders on Lake Victoria.
Famous
And
home place of Idi Amin. Yes, I remember.
that's right, that's him. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, it's long been illegal to perform homosexual acts in Uganda. Well, I say long, for a few years that it's been illegal, but they've upped the ante. Now, they've just passed a new law, and I'm going to show you a clip of it. People who identify as gay risk life in prison, and those who know their family and friends who know that they're gay have a duty to report them to the authorities.
Yeah, Hitler
And
Youth.
there's also a death penalty in certain cases.
So, John, I can say before you show the clip that this has made it was quite prominent in the South African news, especially in view of the fact that the South African Anglican Church just last week it was reported on that they have not approved same-sex unions, but the bishop, Bishop Makgoba of the South African Anglican Church, is outspoken that he's pro homosexual relationships, and he's been in the news all this week about this law. So one, if it can be called such, a good thing about this law in Uganda is it has really placed the spotlight on the discrimination that gay people in Africa in general still have to live with. And I think, as I say, if it can be called good, then that's the only good thing that has come out of this, because it's really a terrible situation.
The reaction to it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so I'm going to cut that clip as we're running out of time, really. And I want to finish with America, where this is another completely ludicrous item of news. West Texas A&M University President Walter Wendler cancelled a student drag show. Several campuses of students had got together, including members of the Secular Students Alliance, to organize this drag show. But the president, it was to raise funds for the LGBTQ plus suicide prevention hotline, but the president cancelled it, claiming that the art form, drag, is misogynistic, divisive, and void of human dignity. And he said his personal religious beliefs and God and the Creator were his justification for cancelling this fundraiser.
Well, it's almost as bad as the principal who was fired in Florida for showing a statue of Michelangelo's David to his students. I don't know if you know about that one, because it's also absolutely. I don't know if that's misogynistic or maybe it's homoeroticism. How shall we know?
Right.
But it's the same type of thing. It's just it's difficult sometimes to take these things seriously. Is this maybe satire? Is the source the onion or something? You know?
Well, we have quite a lot of drag happens, entertainment in this country, and my favourite drag artist goes by the name of Cara Van Park. Cara Van Park.
Yeah. Cara Van Park. Who was the one? A great comedian, British. Very, very flamboyant, but played an older, older woman.
Oh yeah. That doesn't it? That would be.
This is
Who
is
would
it
that
Mrs.
be?
Brown's Boys?
No, though that's one, right? No, it was. It wasn't Lady. It was Dame Edna, or not Dame Edna. Dame
No,
something. Anyway, she was a great comedian,
Yeah.
or he was. I mean, but drag, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you have to
perfectly
remember Klinger.
Yeah.
You know, from the show MASH. You guys ever got that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, great.
Maybe this particular person was the one that was, made to dress up and didn't like it. Now he's fighting back or something.
I'm gonna lay awake trying to remember the name of that famous drag artist now.
Yeah. I thought it was Dame Edna. I thought it was Dame Edna.
No. Edna Everage is an Australian. It's not played as drag. It's played straight.
Yeah. She plays it straight. He plays it straight, but
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll remember.
Good. Let me know.
Yeah.
It's going to keep me awake otherwise.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been wonderful. Thank you very much. Say goodbye. I'm going to
Aye, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Several